everybody. My name is Keely Spring. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. I also provide telehealth to those in Colorado. And this is my podcast, Therapeutically Aligned, where I interview fellow clinicians about the work they do and how they do it and why they do it to kind of help pull back the curtain on this profession for everybody out there. So, today I have with me Sharon. Sharon and I actually had coffee the other day, so it was delightful getting to know Sharon a little bit. One of the
Okay.
joys, one of the joys of this podcast and this work I've been kind of doing. Sharon, would you mind introducing yourself now to the audience and, kind of what your niches are, the broad pictures, broad strokes of your kind of professional career here?
Absolutely. My name is Sharon Harper, and I'm in Williamsburg, Virginia. We had virtual coffee, not real coffee, unfortunately. But I'm in Williamsburg, Virginia. I've been in Virginia for over 20 years. I've been a counselor here for about 15. I have worked in intensive in-home. I have worked at a residential and acute treatment center for kids, so for people under 18, if they became a danger to themselves or others. I've done outpatient at the local government service board, and now I've been in private practice for over 10 years.
And what are the populations that you currently see?
I see everyone. I love having a range of ages and issues. I mean, I have some specialties, but I absolutely love seeing an 80-year-old on the same day that I might see a 4-year-old or that I might see a 12-year-old. For me, working as a therapist, I really don't have a narrow lens on who I serve. Now, I will add the caveat as I've gotten older, it's a little harder for me to get on the floor with kids, and
Okay.
it definitely takes a different type of energy to do that. And I will say for all the families out there that have kids or other therapists that can totally identify with this, one thing that kind of gets in the way sometimes is everybody wants the after school hours, and
Yes.
there's only so many after school hours. So unfortunately, when I can't take kids or I can't take teenagers, it's usually a scheduling thing that there's only so many after hours. So a lot of times families will come to me and their kids will start with me during the school day, and that's a little harder. And then I try to move them up as soon as an afternoon becomes available. And then my issues that I love to work with social anxiety. Love, 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 love social anxiety. I love anxiety in general, and I tend to work with a lot of people with anxiety in general, but social anxiety, and then especially anxiety that has some OCD components, a lot of times, and I feel like this really expanded after COVID, people who had some OCD tendencies, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, once they started really having real things to fear in real life, like unfortunately, a lot of the OCD stuff kind of went up. So I tend to work with people bringing that back down.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Well, we will dive into some of that um soon. It's funny that you bring up the scheduling thing because I do work some evenings and stuff, and I try to keep a reasonable amount, but at the same time during COVID, you mentioned COVID, hours got really long and I'd be working till like from, 8 in the morning till 9 at night. And I recently saw somebody posting about this and saying like, oh, we need to be available when our clients are available. I mean, yes, and we also have to balance our own lives and our own schedules and our own stuff. So I'm glad you brought that up because that is one of those things that I think comes up in the clinical work that we don't talk about that much is like scheduling is hard for us too because we're trying to accommodate, but there's only so many hours that, like my evening appointments are popular, but there's only so many of them that I can
I
hop.
agree. And I actually would challenge the person on that because in order to sustain our careers, like I think that everyone has to understand we just can't be on duty until 9 o'clock at night. When COVID started, I don't know about you, Keely, but I was like, sure, I'll see you on a Friday night or a Saturday morning or a Sunday mid because we didn't have anything to do either. But then I realized I was never off.
Yes.
And trust me, whether you're a clinician or whether you're a client, you want your therapist to have a balanced life.
You too. This is true. This is true. If you want to get something out of the work you're doing with them,
Yes, you
they
want
need.
them to have a balanced life, or they're going to burn out and they're going to leave you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Or you're just not going to get great clinical care.
That's right. That's right. More mistakes, right? Things like that happen, right? So we want our clinicians to have good boundaries with their hours,
Uh-huh.
and we invite clients to ask us why we do that, or to talk about it, or to consider,
For sure.
that it makes them get better services.
For sure. For sure. 100%. Okay, so before we dive into some of those, modalities and kind of what you're talking about there, uh, could you just give a little bit of a flavor of why you went into this profession? You gave us kind of an idea of the different populations and the journey that you've served, but why even become a clinician in the first place?
I think that people would be interested to know that mine was not traditional. A lot of therapists aren't, some are, but I went to school for early childhood education, and then my second degree was in human development, and I thought I was going to work in daycare centers because I really, really, really love kids. I really thought that was going to be, and I got into classrooms and I was like, nope, this is not me. So I ended up going into the fundraising side and working more for associations. And then I ended up sort of detouring a little bit and Keely knows this, but I had a radio broadcasting career for almost 15 years. And so I went up and down the East Coast and I had shows in country and talk radio and rock stations and adult contemporary. And I even worked on a jazz station once. And I saw a lot of change in that industry in the time that I was in it, and I always had an interest in what my first placement was like that working with kids and families, and eventually all roads aligned. And when I left radio, it was a no-brainer to go back to school for my master's in social work and do clinical social work where you can work with the individual and then, social work is very micro, meso, macro. So we do that one-on-one, we do the family and the community in the second ring, and then of course we do the greater community at large, or even the country, or the dynamics of how the world is at this moment, how it affects people. And so I loved what social work offered, and that was as I said, a no-brainer. And believe it or not, I think I use my skills all the time from radio. I think that I had skills in early childhood working with radio people, and they would laugh at me saying that. I'm not making fun of them. They would appreciate that. And then I think now all roads convene in what I do for the role of therapist. So I think that anyone out there who's making a transition, which is also a group I like to work with, anyone out there making a transition, don't worry. Sometimes you can't see the why. You
Yeah,
don't know why one road closes, but you have to just keep going. And eventually, I think they all make sense.
yeah. Yeah, it's like hindsight's 2020, that whole idea, right? If you look back on it,
Total.
you're like, oh, that's like I got a master's degree in communication, thought I was going to teach communication, right? I didn't go that path. But now
Yeah.
I use those communication skills all the time. You know?
All the time. Yeah, there's a bunch of therapists who are like communications journalists. Like there's actually a bunch of us. We could have our own group.
Yep, yep, for sure. Okay, so what do you like about the job?
I absolutely love helping people at difficult times of their life. I absolutely love the trust and relationship that gets built, that therapeutic relationship and being with people through some of their most devastating times and making it to the other end where there's light and there's hope and there's the journey makes sense, kind of like what we were just talking about, but on a like more personal, maybe they've experienced a death in their family, or something tragic has happened, or maybe it's just unresolved trauma since when they were young, but it's affecting their relationships or their work, or their healthy habits now. Like I absolutely love it. I think that my superpower, because I think all therapists have a superpower, my superpower as a therapist is putting the puzzle pieces together for them. It's
Uh-huh.
like, oh, I respond like this, and I'm like, hey, you know what this reminds me of?
Yeah.
And they go, oh my God, like the light, you can literally see the light bulbs going off, and they walk away, and it's such an honor
Mhm.
to be a part of someone's life like that in such an intimate way.
Yeah. Yeah. That resonates on a lot of levels. I agree. Okay, well, so let's talk a little bit about the modality. So you talked a little bit about OCD and kind of working with large populations of people, kind of different variations, which, also resonates for me. I sometimes I think, I always understand the argument for like being super niched in this field. It definitely kind of lends itself to easier marketing and, certain things, but I do think there's a level of boring that can sometimes happen if you're doing the same things over and over. For you, what are some of those modalities and things that you might pull from when you're working with, these various different populations? Are there things that you favor in terms of techniques or, lines of thinking around this.
I am such a thief. Like, I'm just going to say this out loud. I'm such a thief. I like to steal from different things. I'm definitely a jack of all trades, master of none. Now, some therapists, and this goes both for therapists that are considering their careers and considering their niche, and then also this goes to people who work with therapists. Some therapists are very like, this is my school. I am a CBT therapist. I'm a DBT therapist. I am in this school, and that's the way I do this.
Mhm.
And two thumbs up if that's the structure and that you like that beginning, middle, and end. For me, I have to steal a little bit from everyone depending on what I'm working with. And maybe it's because I don't work with just one type of person and one population and one age group that I have to be kind of more, fluid. And so I've done a lot of work in OCD, right, in the exposure and response. I've done work in crisis, as I said. I've done work, obviously, in CBT and some of the standards, but I've also done art therapy and play therapy training. I love when I pull out a play therapy thing at an adult and I'm like, hey, this is what we're going to do today. Or I'm like, hey, stop everything. We're going to color today. I'm not an art therapist. I want to be clear. And I'm not a play therapist, but I've done training in them that I can bring them in if I think that we are at a place where we need to think of what we're trying to accomplish outside of the, like, if we just need to like take it from a different view. And nothing opens up something more than having an adult color or engage in a play activity, or do a lifeline, so I like so I'm a thief.
Yeah.
I'm a shameless thief. Thank you to all who have invented these ways.
I would argue that I am one as well because I do think you got to pull from a lot of different things. You got to meet people where they're at. I also am somebody, I don't know what your opinion on this is I'm somebody who thinks that a lot of these different styles, there's so many overlaps that
Yes.
sometimes it is hard to like, distinguish where one ends and the other begins because if you look at like CBT, right, off of CBT, you then have ACT and DBT and different types that, kind of pull
Yes.
from
Yeah.
similar, they're kind of in the same vein of modalities in terms of, yeah, underlying
I
thought.
100% agree. Yeah, no, no, no. I 100% agree. And again, they sometimes weave together better than even the people who invented, I don't know if that's the right word, but who formulated, like sometimes they don't realize how well you can put together your own little, like, let's call it the a la carte version where you're taking from this and taking from that. But once it's together, it makes a delicious dinner.
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes you just have to pick the pieces that work for the person. And that's where I think you said it, and I would like highlight, underline, exclamation point, which is that if I know that these things work for a person, I don't have to keep going in one modality. If I know that they really like, a type of narrative therapy, or if we're solution, I'm always solution focused anyway, but like if we're really like if I know they like a certain type of therapy, or certain type of activity, I can take it from different places as long as I know it's in the same realm. I mean, when you're a therapist long enough, I've used somatic therapy when I've worked with kids with RAD. Um, I'm trying to think of all the different ones. And I know for some people this might be getting too much in the resume, but like when we're talking about meeting someone where they're at, we're also talking about listening and watching to their responses in the room.
Mhm.
And so having like a big toolbox sometimes is great.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and the other thing I would say is, because from like social media and things, people will come in. So I'm a CBT. I kind of use that as a backbone of framework. But I'm also Hakomi trained, so somatically trained. But not everybody is willing to go towards the somatic and wants that. And what will happen with social media, to the point I was going to make there, is um, people will come in with an idea. Like I've had people, so many people, because they'll see that I do practice CBT and they're like, oh, I really want CBT. But then they don't really actually want or need really CBT. And it's not a bad thing. It's just that they're going off of what they're seeing on social media has worked for somebody else. But when they're in front of me and we're talking, it's like, oh, no, no, no. This is like attachment issues. And this is,
Yes,
some deeper work that needs to be in a different
totally.
way.
Total. That's brilliant. And it's true. And this is a good one for everyone. Doctors often recommend a type of therapy.
Uh,
And sometimes we have to remember, even psychiatrists might see someone for 20 minutes. That's very different from being in your room an hour every week where you go, oh, wait. you know what? CBT isn't exactly what would work here.
Yeah.
Something else would work here. Like we have to trust ourselves, and I'm very confident. I think my years in working in the hospital made me very confident and okay with pushing back when
Yeah.
somebody is trying to tell me exactly what someone needs. Sometimes they're right. Don't get me wrong. I don't just argue it to argue it. But working with someone one on one in that intimate way, we said sometimes we really get a better handle
Yeah.
on what would work for them. And sometimes it's a form of something, and maybe the doctor doesn't always know exactly what we're doing. Doctors, psychiatrists, schools, um, general practitioners, judges, like sometimes they like to tell what you should be
Sure.
using, and they don't really understand. They just know it worked for one person that was in their courtroom or in their classroom,
Sure. Yeah.
not necessarily for everyone that walks into our room.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it ties into this whole idea of therapist fit, right? Because
Mm,
you're looking for the relationship that's going to kind of help get you to where you're going to go.
yeah,
And so if a CBT works for you and you find a clinician that just practices that and that's what you do, great.
yeah,
But also there's a different type of therapist and I think sometimes when people talk about like therapy failing I think it's this preconceived notions that people come in that there's going to be a certain way or it's going to be a certain type, when the reality is they need this different something, and
definitely.
you
Definitely
know,
a different therapeutic relationship or a different approach or a different, just the way you work together. Absolutely.
Okay, so before we move on to the next question, just because you mentioned OCD earlier, would you mind just kind of sharing? I have had two other people I can think of that work with OCD, but I think it's one of those diagnoses that gets really understood. People really think it's just about being clean and orderly or, something like along those lines, which certainly could be a component of it if you're constantly, having to have things a certain way and all that. But um, it's so much more than that. Would you mind speaking a little bit to like what is actually OCD?
Sure. So, and again, now some people, when you hear this, you're going to overdiagnose yourself. So don't do that either. It can be missed. It can be very often missed, but it can also be overdiagnosed. And so that is why a full assessment really is the number one place. So before we say anything, go to somebody who can do a full assessment of the symptoms and is willing to work on them and make sure that you're not being diagnosed in the wrong level. So OCD, when we talk about obsessive compulsive disorder, everyone always thinks of checking the stove 5 times. Everybody always thinks of locking the door. That is one very small sliver. And there's a lot of different types. And I'd say the one that is probably underestimated the most often is the intrusive thoughts
Yeah,
and how they can be so repetitive and so dangerous. I'm going to change this up a little bit for confidentiality, but working with somebody who would have to stop their car 5 times on the way to my office to make sure they didn't hit something. And then even when they get to my office, say to me, well, what if I'm just lying to myself? Like that is an OCD thing. So we have the obsessive side, which is where your anxiety is so big you can't stop worrying about something. Sometimes it's medical diagnoses,
yeah,
right? And that you're something wrong and I'm going to die of cancer and I'm sure I'm going to die young or something like that. And then we have the compulsive side. And this goes back to what you said. Sometimes somebody is just obsessive and sometimes somebody is just compulsive, like on paper. But usually what's happening is there's an anxiety that your brain is trying to give you a a false sense of security about. So you're afraid the house is going to burn down. Now you're checking the stove 5 times.
yeah,
So there's an underlying worry.
yeah,
And then your brain has given you a sort of like that
yeah,
buffering on your computer where it just keeps making you have the same loop thought. And you try to solve it by doing something compulsively. And if it is that person who's pulling over,
yeah,
or if it's a medical worry, you might be at the doctor's 3 times a month, right? Because you think now my symptoms, like I really want you to understand these symptoms.
yeah,
And again, that's when OCD is really worth working with not just the person, but the people that service them because you can really narrow in. Now, I will say for anyone out there who has been diagnosed with OCD or is worried about it, OCD is also one of the like super great things to treat because when the person starts coming off of it and starts understanding what's happening to them, it's one of the ones that really can go away. and that they can get a lot of a sense of accomplishment over it. And even if it starts, you know, coming up a little bit, let's say somebody's going off to college and they struggled with OCD when they were younger. A lot of times they tell me like just making the appointment with you, Sharon, like it went away again because their brain goes, oh, that's right. Like we know how to solve this. This isn't I don't want to say real, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm using air quotes for those that are listening. Like it's real, but it's not real. Like you're not in immediate danger. It's that your whole entire system is overcompensating for a worry, and your fight, flight, or freeze has decided that we're going to do these bizarre things in order to keep you safe.
Yeah. Yeah. And so treatment is, to your point, is very effective. And one of the standards in care that you kind of mentioned or alluded to a little bit ago was the exposure therapy. So kind of helping people tolerate those kind of obtrusive thoughts or obsessive, whatever it is they're kind of obsessing about.
Yeah.
Um, and sitting with that uncertainty or discomfort for a while before they take action, which is why it is so effective. It is this like kind of very, you know, linear path it can be. This,
Right. And this is a great one too for people to understand. So sometimes people are afraid to get treatment for OCD because they're actually afraid to lose the things
uh-huh,
because they've come into these, you know, cyclical patterns. But what I would say to you is don't worry because a good therapist would, a trained therapist in OCD would never do that to you. So when people first come to us with OCD, they are at the height of stress, right? They might not be sleeping, they're doing all these things. And so let's pretend somebody's agoraphobic. Well, I am never in a million years going to be like, all right, well, let's go to a park. Let's go to like a state fair. Let's just get this over with. Let's throw
right.
you in the deep end. That's not how OCD works. And that is not how we solve it. But what we do is we start talking about, well, can you touch your doorknob today? Like, can you just touch your doorknob? Can you look at the window for a couple minutes more? You know, and then maybe we're just having them like open the door a little bit. And, you know, and then depending on how well that's going over time, we're going to have them so they are taking a couple steps out their street. Now, that might sound in like, wow, that would take too long. No, but look what happened. Their brain learned they were safe every step of the way. And they're no longer worried about touching the doorknob. They're worried about standing on the corner.
Yeah.
And that's how you get control of OCD. And one day they're not worried about it in the same way at all.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it goes so many ways with this, but um, let's talk about then what would a typical session look like for you? I'm guessing there is no typical session,
There's
but
no typical session, but
okay.
I'm much more of a talk therapist. I mean, I mentioned other activities, but I'm definitely much more of a talk therapist, taking information and making those connections, making those puzzle pieces that I talked about. I am very upfront with people when they first come to me about fit and comfort. And one of my lines that I always say, I say every single time, and this goes to clinicians, I say, listen, if this is not a room that you think you can feel safe in, if I am not a person that makes you feel safe right now already, because we're going to go much deeper. And yeah, of course, it's a little weird because it's the first time, but if you do not feel that, we are not going to end this session today until I've given you three other names
Ah, nice. Yeah. Yeah.
because it has to be the right fit.
100%. It's a number one driver of effectiveness of therapy. So that's the other thing is, people always over-index, I think, on the modalities of, I think it's good to get a sense of how clinicians are thinking about things or kind of formulating things in
Yeah.
their mind. And the real driver of change is, can I trust this person? Do I want to talk to them? Am I
Yeah.
engaged in this? And I work with couples, I work with individuals and couples, and I will say with couples, sometimes there's like one person that you have that with, and then you don't have it with the other person, and it can be a real delicate balance to find with
I
people.
think that's especially important for people to understand why clinicians don't always work with couples and why it's harder to find people who work well with couples is because they're already at a point, couples are already at a point where they're struggling with each other. And if one doesn't feel aligned with the therapist and the other one does, sometimes that can just be another point of discontent.
Yes.
Right? And then the person who did connect with you was like, "Oh, well, you're just doing this because you don't want to get better or you don't want this." And no, it's really about like it has to be a triad there.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And you got to do, as a clinician, I find that I do a lot more work in the beginning of trying to ease things in with couples
Yeah.
because of that, because I am trying to get to know both and
Yeah.
understand both on an equal footing. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a tricky thing. Okay, well, are there things that surprise you? We've been doing this for a minute. Are there things that still surprise you about the work that you do?
Um, I think the thing that still surprises me to this day is how much life can change for people.
Mm,
I think we really underestimate that, and sometimes we try to sell it short because we don't want to oversell it.
yeah,
But when somebody feels better
yeah,
or has better control over themselves or understands themselves,
mm,
it can change every part of their. I mean, my favorite thing is to get fired, and I tell them that I'm like, I can't wait until the day you fire me.
yeah,
Like, how exciting is that?
yeah,
That there can be a day where this is over because you're doing so dang well.
yeah.
And I'm sorry, it's illegal for us to just get paid for you to sit here and tell me how well you're doing. Like you have to move on without me in a really
Yeah.
good way.
Yeah, for sure. I have a couple clients who they will joke with me because they're like, you keep trying to fire me. And I'm like, and so some of them they'll just check in like once a month, or I've got one, he just kind of comes back whenever he
Yeah.
needs a booster session. But a couple of people have joked with me over the years of like, you just keep trying to fire me. And I'm like, because you're okay. You are
Yes,
perfectly okay. I am happy for you to come in and chat. I enjoy the conversation, but from a clinical standpoint, I want you to know you're fine. You're fine. Please go live your life, And
that's right. That's you, and you proved it to them, right? Because by the time they're coming to you for maintenance or
yeah,
once a month,
yes,
like then the idea is, listen, literally for 54 minutes,
yeah,
you're with me, and all the other minutes this month,
yeah,
manage this.
yes,
You got this. And we're not going to know if you don't got it until you're not in here for a while.
yes, yes. I'm not with you all the time anyways. So, let's
Yes.
let's test it out. Let's experiment. Let's see how you do. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, well, are there things that you wish people knew or understood about therapy and, kind of the therapeutic process?
I think that the best thing for everyone to understand is, again, when you face those boundaries, it is because the therapist has to be sustainable. And when you really like someone, so one of my hard, fast rules is you get one free miss per year,
Yeah,
one free late cancellation. And then no matter what, unless you're in a coma in a hospital and can give me that paperwork, like I charge you for under 24 hours notice. And the reason I do that is because, and trust me, somebody always will, well, Sharon, this happened or that happened. And I say to them, it is unethical for me to decide your crisis is different than someone else's crisis. So even if your child threw up on you on the way to school that morning, who am I to say that that's more important than the client whose parent had a heart attack?
right.
Or like I just can't do that. It is just unethical for me to decide one person's crisis is different than another. Again, unless you were actually incapacitated, because then it's almost illegal for me to charge you.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So, but I give one free per year. Like everyone has a thing. I have a thing, but after that, you do pay for your missed session. And that is a healthy boundary for me, but a healthy boundary for you as my client, because then I'm never making special deals for someone else. I'm never deciding. So if I'm charging you, I'm charging them.
Yes. Yeah, I have a variation of that. I give them one free, not yearly, but like, if they start with me, I give them one free with a reminder about the policy, and then I charge. But I love that you bring this up because I do think, people hate boundaries, like in general, like people love to enact them or feel like they could enact them in some ways, right? But uh, it's also hard to do. But people don't like being on the other side of boundaries. But I kind of feel like, well, not kind of, I do feel that as clinicians, we're modeling that for people. We're modeling healthy boundaries and fee structure and, even holding that container space. So, like sometimes I'll have people who will say, they'll text me like, because I only let people text me about like logistical things, like I'm running late or, something like that. And I've had people in the past that they're like, can we just start like 15, 20 minutes late and I'll go over my time. And it's like, no, 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 because I'm holding that space for you. And
Yeah.
I have space for somebody else right after that I'm not going to take over their space because your space. And I think the cancellation, all this kind of stuff plays into this container that we're creating. And yeah, it's not always comfortable for me as a clinician to be enacting those, but I'm partly trying to like model that like this is just you have a time and a space. And the other thing too with the cancellations is when I hold that space for you, especially like we were talking earlier, I have certain spots that are popular. They're evening spots, things like
Yes.
that. And if you cancel at the last minute for that evening spot, well, guess what? There's probably somebody I could have put in that spot, but
Yes.
because you canceled with not enough time, now there's nobody I can put in that spot, and now the spot goes to waste when I could have been helping somebody, quite honest.
Absolutely. I have another thing for therapists, which is a download that I made, which is called Can I Afford to Be Generous?
Oh,
And it really has you ask 8 questions of yourself before you're giving away free spots or letting that person go for the fifth time because you know they're going through a divorce and money is hard. Like, and again, this is all about not being mean, it's about sustainability for the therapist. And if you can't answer those questions positively, then maybe you need to look at your policies for
yeah,
what you allow.
yeah. I love this. I think this is something that most clinicians could really use, which also leads brilliantly to the next question, which is there a tool that we could share with the audience or something? If you're open to it, I don't know. Is that a paid thing that you just mentioned that people pay for?
That is in the Therapist Resource Institute, which we haven't talked about yet, but I have created something for therapists, which is we have a whole bunch of resources, and what I can do is, sorry, I do have a bunch of free resources on there as well, but then we also have paid tools. But you only pay one price, and then you get all the tools. But I have like a financial tracker for therapists. I have that one. I have a finding your niche. I have career pathways. I have so there's a bunch of things for if you're a professional and if you're a client. I don't know, maybe I'll come up with some version of it and give it to you so you can put it up on your website. How's that?
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. Well, so is there something top of your mind though that we could share that I will put up and I want to talk about the resource center in a second here just because I think it is a very good valuable thing for people. Uh is there a tool that we could share that you use with clients or things that we could kind of share with the audience just as like a, takeaway they could use?
Absolutely. I'll give you one of my favorites. So, and this is probably a bastardized version again that I've stolen over time and somehow it's
Okay.
become mine. So to whoever may have done this, but I do a version of it, which is that I do a timeline. And on the first dot, we put your date of birth.
Hmm.
And on the last dot, we put your today, right?
Huh?
And then what I have is on top, you write good, and on the bottom, you write bad. And then I say, go through your life for the major events and put a line going up, kind of like you're creating a timeline, going a line going up or a line going bad. If it was a good event, a bad event, a medium event. Maybe it's a little bit of, but a lot of times moves can be good and bad, or a new job can be good or bad, right? And then I have them go all the way back to as far as they can remember. And, it could be a pet dying, it could be getting a new pet, it could be falling in love, it could be getting married, it could be having your children, it could be losing a parent or losing a child, or, all these things. It could be you got an award in high school for being a great soccer player. Like it's your events, not mine. What
Yeah.
are the big ones for you? Right. And then I have them do that whole thing. And then the first part of it that we do is we talk about those events, right? We go through their timeline, why it was important. And sometimes there's great things for the therapist, by the way, because you can see, oh, relationships are huge for them. Like
Yeah.
their whole timeline is who they met, who they fell in love with, best friends breaking up when they
Sure.
were, 16, that sort of thing. And then other times it's very work oriented or accomplishment oriented. So I think it gives the therapist a ton of information. But for the client, one of the reasons I love it is because I go through it with a yellow highlighter
Mhm.
and I literally follow their up, their down, their middle. And I say to them, what do you see? And of course, everyone says it's a roller coaster. And I say, yes.
Yeah.
And so is mine.
Uh-huh.
And so is the 7-year-old that was in here today and the 70-year-old that will be in here tomorrow. Everyone's life is a series of ups and downs. And if you're coming to therapy because you think at some point therapy just makes you have all good, that is an impossible state of being.
Yeah.
And that is not the way life goes. So let's work on those expectations because no matter how good therapy goes for you, we're going to flip this page over and it's blank.
Yeah.
And guess what? You have a whole nother page. and you can control some things, but my guess is it's going to be just like that roller coaster for you. So I actually took this activity, right, from somebody over time, but we also make it about our expectations, about what's important to us in life, and not just about the roller coaster, but about how that roller coaster is going to continue. So what do you need to be strong and healthy during that roller coaster for the rest of your life?
Yeah. I love it. You mentioned anxiety is a general, framework that I also love working with anxiety. It's like one of my favorite things to work with, I think, because
Yeah.
I tend to run anxious and I recognize it well and like helping people with it. Uh, and I always tell people, you're never going to get rid of anxiety. Life is producing anxiety. And you mentioned a new job, that's anxiety, a new baby, a new relationship, endings are anxiety provoking. Like life's anxious. Like you're gonna have it. It's not so much that you're gonna, to your point, have this like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, well now it's just flat. It's like, no,
never.
but now I have tools, and my roller coaster might not just be so high and low, or it might be a little bit more moderated because now I have the tools that I can say,
Yeah.
anxiety happened, but oh, that thing that Sharon taught me, you know what? I'm going to use that instead, and I'm not going to let it kind of rule my life. I'm going to kind of be a little bit more in control of how I respond to it. Not that it's not going to happen.
And by the way, if you have anxiety, you're never going to get rid of anxiety because anxiety is important. Anxiety teaches you not to like get in a car with a stranger. Anxiety, like an amount of worry and awareness is actually good. It's just the people that end up in our rooms, it's often overstimulated, it's hyperreactive, it's hypersensitive, or you're hypervigilant.
Yes.
So we don't want you to get rid of your anxiety. We want you to be safe. We just want it to be with the events that are appropriate.
Yes. 100%. Coming up for me is a female client felt unsafe and she has a lot of anxiety. She also has PTSD, but a
Mhm.
lot of anxiety about safety. And we've been having these conversations of like, I don't actually want you to like not have any anxiety if
Yeah,
you're walking around the city at night. Like you should have some anxiety because it's going to keep you safe. It's going to keep you. And so
that's
there's
right.
this line that we kind of work with of like, you want it to be in a controllable way, but
Yeah,
you're never going to get rid of it because to your point, yes, it's useful information. It's something that you can use to your benefit.
exactly. Exactly. Especially someone with a history of trauma. We
Yeah.
never want to take away their danger signals. We
Yes.
just don't want them to overwhelm them and flood them.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, so Sharon, let's talk real briefly here. Could you give a little bit of a spiel maybe about your resource center and kind of what that is and before we kind of get to know you on a little personal level here?
Mhm. So one of the things that I have really found a passion for is also helping and working with other therapists. And we have a lot of demands on us right now and a lot of expectations and not enough systems that hold us safe as therapists. So I wanted to do that and give that back. We have a lot of demands. We have a lot of companies that have come into our fields and a lot of things that are supposed to make life easier for us. And by the time I end up talking to a lot of therapists, it doesn't feel much easier. And it really feels like, unfortunately, that things have taken advantage of therapists and therapy. And so I have created the Therapist Resource Institute as a place to hold therapists and keep us safe and give us a space where we can talk to each other about our real lives, about what's happening. A lot of clients don't realize we go through deaths. I had cancer as a therapist. None of my clients know that. But I had cancer
Let me know
and it
now.
was they might, right? And we lose people and we worry about our family members and we're tired and like women go through menopause while they're treating clients and maybe aren't sleeping that well. So we have all these things that we go through that we sometimes need to bond over. And we also need better systems because right now the way clients get to us and your clients would probably totally relate to this, but a lot of our systems are very clogged and overwhelmed and overwhelming
Yeah.
to clients and also to practitioners.
Yeah.
So I've created in the Therapist Resource Institute a better way of making referrals to each other and
Mhm.
being able to help each other get the clients that are right for them instead of just having this open, like, here's 200 therapists in this zip code. So if somebody is going to Keely and they say, hey, listen, my best friend wants to come to you, and Keely says, I can't because that would be a conflict, but you What are they struggling? And oh, OCD and anxiety. Well, let me send them to Sharon. And so I've created a safe, PHI-free way of us being able to refer to each other. We also do meetings like a business lab to help us with the business side. Happy hour. We do sustainability meetings. How do we help ourselves
Mhm.
last in this career? How do we recognize maybe some of the symptoms that we're starting to have a little bit of compassion fatigue or burnout? How do we get to them quicker so
Sure.
that they don't affect us? So it's really trying to be an all-in-one hub like no one else has ever created for therapists, believe it or not. The reason I built it is because there wasn't one.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, yeah, it's all it sounds like there's a lot of different avenues that you're kind of trying to cover here for clinic.
Yeah, trying to plug the holes in places that aren't. Some of the things that we're working on for therapists that are interested is a full case transfer. So let's say somebody's in private practice and they're going to take a private job. TRI is has a way that is going to be released this summer where someone can say, "Oh my gosh, I'm not telling 20 clients where to look. How do I do this simpler?" And a way to do that, or gosh forbid if somebody has an accident or a crisis in their family and they have to step away, or pregnancy and they just don't know when they're back, things like that. So TRI is really trying to plug the holes in systems that nobody has ever created for therapists.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. We get left behind in the
Yes.
whole mental health journey. People are focused on all these different areas, and it's like the clinicians are like not the place people seem to focus. They focus on making us more efficient, but not like how to make us successful.
That's right. Yes. Unfortunately, and this isn't against our clients, but so much of the work is focused on them.
Yeah.
And if again, it goes back to those healthy things for the provider. If we're not giving the provider the healthy supports and system and community, they're not going to last in this field.
Yeah.
And we really want them to last in this field for as long as they'd like to.
Yeah. 100%. All right. Well, thank you, Sharon. That's the clinical portion. Are you ready to be seen a little bit more personally?
Ready.
All right.
Ready.
So, first question is, what is something that is making you happy right now?
My dog, I have a little puppy and he's just adorable. And he's like, so he's a poodle, he's a toy poodle. So he always looks like a baby. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't realize. I kind of always like bigger dogs. He was a rescue, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they forever look like a baby because they like the way they yawn and everything. It's hilarious.
What's his name?
Banks, Banx, named after the Outer Banks because he looked like sand. He's white with little pieces of amber, so he looked like sand when he was a baby, and he would just go into that ball.
Love it. Love it. Okay, do you have a favorite app?
I do not have a favorite app, but I will tell everyone something that's really exciting. Sorry, but I'm going to plug TRI by accident now. But I have met so many therapists that are building apps.
Mhm.
Like, and so I think that we're going to get a lot more apps from therapists where you can work in between your sessions. And by the way, I'm going to underline and say it again for everyone, created by therapists. Like, look for the created by therapists and not, you know, coaches and people like this, like therapeutic things to help you. So I'm excited. I think about the next realm of apps that are coming out built by therapists.
Love it. Love it. We'll look forward to those. I think, yeah, more clinicians doing that type of work, the better.
Yeah.
Okay, beach or mountains?
Both, but I'm sorry, I'm in Virginia, so I have both. I have the beach and I have the mountains, and I did that purposely. But I used to love to hike. Unfortunately, I don't. My hip is one of the parts of aging. My hip doesn't love hiking, even though I do. And so, but water is my like safety place. So I would say water, like when you're hiking and you can go to a waterfall, or when you're at the beach and you can just hear the waves. So I'm gonna go beach, mountains, and water.
Love it. Love it. Okay, what is one thing that movies never get right?
They're therapists. Like
Yeah.
we have to be bizarre to be. Does everyone say that because we've been just
A,
talking about them?
a good portion. I more than I ever when I created this survey, like more than I expected. I mean, that was kind of my answer, but I've been surprised at like, yeah, I would say like 80 to 90% of therapists are like therapy, and everybody has a little different take of what is wrong about it. But so what is
Yeah.
your kind of
Well, and I have a follow-up answer to that too. So therapists, I think they make interesting stories about boundaries, but the problem is I think if there's a lot of people in the world who are hesitant about therapy, I think sometimes it's almost a little too loose on using what might be a struggle for a therapist and could scare people from getting treatment.
Yeah.
If they, I mean, I don't know. I love that. Oh, what's the TV show with Shrinking? I love that show.
Oh,
That is like those people would have all lost their license. Like nobody does it. Nobody moves a client into their house and meets them at a bar, and but they would lose their license. And I think a person who's afraid of therapy or does not understand it can have a misconception that you're going to be best friends,
right.
or number two, that a therapist is going to show up at a bar that you're at. Like none of that should ever happen, and it doesn't happen, and a person would lose their license. And if your therapist ever showed up at a bar because they were stalking you, please report them. Like
Right.
that's not appropriate.
Not appropriate at all. One book that I liked that was about the therapist, and they said they were going to make it into a movie or a TV show, but they never did, is Maybe You Should Talk to Somebody. Did you ever read
Oh
that
yeah,
one?
I don't
Ah,
Lori
Gottman
something.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Is it more Lori Gottlieb? Yeah. So yeah, so that was a great book that I could not read because the whole beginning she keeps talking about her clients and it kept making me think about clients. So I had to shut it down. I was like, I can't read this. Like I brought it on a vacation with me and I was like, well, this is just making me think about work. So
Fair.
maybe I should pull it out as a regular textbook.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I did read it for a therapist book club I was in, so
There you go.
it was a
Yeah.
little meta experience there. But that one was good. Okay, best way to relax for you. How do you like to relax?
Um, I know this is going to sound probably so weird. At the end of the day, I absolutely have to have a little TV on because otherwise my mind starts working. And so I need something that's really interesting though. So I really like, I don't like ID like murders, like the husband murdered the wife. We hear enough terrible things in work, but I love like mysteries or something that needs to be solved because I have to get into it. So I really like turning on things that have me thinking about something else, and then I can get tired because otherwise I'll think all night long.
It's hard to turn it off for sure. I just saw a
Yeah,
comedian woman, I forget her name, but she was talking about this. She's like, women are having, for every one sentence that comes out, we've got like 15 things that we've thought about. And I was like, oh, that checks. Yeah.
definitely, definitely. I think I would also like to say laughing and being with friends is like a total relax for me. And I have great friends. I'm a great friend and I have great friends. And I'm very humorous. And man, when you just belly laugh with people, there's nothing like that.
For sure. I agree. Okay. Do you have a dream trip location, somewhere you'd like to go?
I'm going to Italy in a week.
Hey,
So yeah, I've actually been very lucky with being able to travel. I think if I was to have a dream, it would be to own a beach house where I just am walking right out to it. That would be my like
dream location.
dream location. Yeah, there you go.
That's fair. Okay. What advice would you give your younger self?
Two things. And the first one is the all roads, like everything eventually makes sense. Hold on a little bit.
Mhm.
Because when you're young and you don't know it, and I would say that about love too. I'm very fortunate. I'm madly in love with my husband. We have an amazing relationship. We've been together for 20 years. And I just love him more every day. And I think I would have went back to my really much younger self and be like, oh, don't worry about this. Don't worry about this so much. Like it all makes sense eventually. And if you don't worry about it so much, I think you make good decisions about who you want to end up with. And I don't think there is anything wrong with saying I want it to be as close to perfect as possible to start because life is hard enough.
Mhm.
And having a good partner with you instead of settling for something that's going to add to stress during the bad times, I think that is some advice I'd give not just to my younger self, but to everyone. And I do. I talk about it shamelessly about like making sure you have a good partner because of that up and down, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I also think that if you focus too much on it, I see this with a lot of clients, you focus too much on it, and like what you think the ideal is, you're gonna miss maybe the good person that comes along. And
Yeah,
I will say, like on a personal level, I didn't meet my husband until I stopped. Like I just was like, okay, I'm just gonna do me, focus on what I want to do, and like
yeah.
live 3 months later, I met my husband, because it was
Yeah,
like
that's great.
a
Yeah.
shift in perspective, right?
Yeah,
That's,
I think, and actually I think that's very true too, is I didn't look at somebody, I was looking for someone that I needed to complete me. I
yeah,
had my life and it was going to be icing, and I think that's and that made the difference. That makes the difference.
yeah, I agree. Okay, out of the four seasons, what's your favorite?
I would say summer because my birthday, but right now it's 114 degrees here. So it's like a ridiculous summer day in Virginia. So I don't know. Right now, summer doesn't feel like it. I would say fall.
Oh, nice. Okay, last three questions. What is the worst superhero power to have? You mentioned what your superhero is. What would be the worst one to have?
The worst super power to have would be invisibility because I think so much of our clients already feel like that.
Uh,
And I also think it would be something that would be so hard not to overuse.
yeah,
And you probably don't want to sit in a room all the time when people are thinking about you, talking about you. Like, I work with families and couples as you do. And like, sometimes you just don't have to hear every thought. Like, like you don't want to know. Like somebody can just process something or vent about something, and that doesn't mean they hate you or that you're a bad person. So I think invisibility or hearing thoughts, anything that lets you into too much of someone else's mind.
yeah, couldn't agree more. Is there an animal that resonates for you?
Um, I think that you'd like to be like a jaguar, like a super cool black jaguar that looks like, like runs fast and everything, but I'm probably much more of a bunny rabbit. I'm a hop along, happy go lucky.
Love it. So, final question. When you look back at your life, what do you hope you'll be able to say about it?
Oh, I really hope that the way I feel that I'm helping people is true and lasting, and that even when I'm not on this earth, I hope it carries through to their families for generations. And I hope now I'm doing the same thing for mental health professionals, that I'm really helping create change in a way that is lasting long beyond my years.
Hmm. Yeah, love it. That ripple effect.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, thank you, Sharon. You are officially seen.
Thank you. You too.
Before we hop off here, I mean, we talked about the Resource Institute. Is there anything that you'd like? I will, share with everybody your information, how to get in touch with you. But is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to make sure that the audience knows before we hop off here?
I am not taking clients, so anyone who is listening in Virginia, I do have an extensive wait list, but as I just said, I can refer you to other people who are taking people at the moment. I think that what I would say is notice that there was a theme here for all of us, and it's really about a couple of things. And one is waiting and not worrying, and that goes to, whether that goes to a partner or a job or a niche or finding a mental health professional. So if you have tried mental health counseling and it wasn't right, it might have been just the connection with the therapist. Go ahead and try it again. Don't be afraid to try it again. Um, and then I would say for professionals, do not think that having boundary, don't listen to a Facebook group or something that says like you should do your hours when other people do. You have to last in this career, right? You want to last in your career. You didn't spend all this money going through and getting your master's and your license to not last. So I would say find what's best for you first, make the schedule that's best for you first, take the insurances that are best for you first, or if private pay, or if you're, Medicare, like that serves your population, but you first, like put yourself first, and you will have a great career and you will last. You will see yourself outlast other therapists.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Well, again, thanks, Sharon. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kaylee.